Hello, Roftwood. It's me, Zombie GG with the Roftwood Coordination Center, proudly presenting you with another post-apocalyptic production I like to call an RCC Fireside Chat. This episode is the 7th part of my series with my all-time arch-nemesis and RCC public enemy number 1, Lord Moloch, strike leader for the infamous Ridleybank Resistance Front's Gore Corps necro-terrorist unit. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show.
So Murray was number 4 after Petruccio, and he kind of came in at sort of an unlucky stage. So the same as Sonny was kind of screwed over because he was made Papa just as the Battle of Blackmore began. Murray wound up becoming Papa because Petruccio, as happens a lot in Urban Dead, the leader didn't have a line of succession, he just vanished. The same happened when Petruccio took over from Sonny. And then it happened when Murray took over from Petruccio. Petruccio vanished, and Murray had to take over actually during the Battle of Saint-Reville, so it had already started. So he had the misfortune of having his reign as Papa kind of defined by a defeat. But it was defined well by it because he handled it brilliantly. He's a very good diplomat. He bowed out with grace, and he arranged the dance party with Rex Grossman and Gulina. And we left with honor, but I know it burned him. He's someone who does not like to lose, and it emotionally it hurt him actually quite badly. But he took the team out, he took his lumps, and he tried to get the team back to normal. The problem was that he wasn't a very good logistical or tactical thinker. He was great with people. He was somebody who had fantastic ideas, but he could never see them through to fruition because
execution.
Yeah, we had a running joke within the RRF that he killed strike teams. Had like 2 or 3 strike teams that he tried to start up that he failed with. Nothing happened with them. So we would refer to him starting a strike team up as him Murray J-ing a strike team.
Wow.
So when he came back in and he was like chatting to Team America, I was like, get your fucking strike team aides away from my new successful strike team. I don't want you to destroy them too. Just because that was the reputation he had, and he took it in good heart and everything. But the thing that he really did is that after the Baja Brigade and everyone else left for Nexus War, that was most of the War Council. So in their absence, there wasn't really a war council anymore. There were a few people there, like the old hand Baudelaire. He stayed around for ages, and he had a similar personality to Jorm, but I found him a lot more likable just because he tended to be right. And I can respect right more than I can respect Jorm because he's a cock. Murray set about rebuilding the war council, and he did it more or less very well. He recruited people like Gulina to it, and he definitely recognized the future in that he was like, the Gore Corps a thing now. And
tactics, man.
Yeah, even though he was still very skeptical about it and he didn't want to use any of the information. So he brought her into the war council. He brought Julius Caesar in, who was one of Gulina's lieutenants, and various others. His big mistake was that he hired he promoted too many of his own strike team, Orcs Unit 10. So it created very overrepresented, hugely so. There were people in there who had no business being in the War Council. But in spite of that, he did create a functional War Council. It was just a bit of a snake pit. The RRF War Council was notoriously a snake pit for years, since its inception. But under him, it was a snake pit at a time when that snake pit could really do damage.
Damn.
Yeah, so eventually I wind up in the War Council. And I've been through my history. Eventually Murray gets worn out and he makes me Papa against his own better judgment. And he's since admitted that he was happy with that outcome and that he'd actually misjudged me, because I did an interview with him years ago that I've got a screenshot of it that you can read.
Cool.
But basically, I then become Papa, and I've told you all about my history, so there's no point going over that again. Johnny Bass was my successor. Globule was Johnny Bass's successor. Now, Johnny Bass very much tried to follow my model. He'd seen the success of my model, and he copied it by rote, which was absolutely the right move at that time because the Horde couldn't function a different way.
Yeah, you
But
just had it. It's just routine, just have
yeah,
someone keep the
yeah,
routine going.
yeah, they were drilled in it, and he literally just copied my system, even to the point at which I was quite famous and teased a lot about the fact that I use a lot of colors in my forum posts.
Okay.
Basically, if you color the order a certain color, it makes people more likely to read it. So, like, the Gore Corps would be red, AU-10 would always be blue, Team America would always be orange, etc.
That's very clever, dude. Very clever.
Yeah, so I would put their order in that one color. So if they didn't want to read through all of my speechifying and my attempt to set a narrative up for the story, they could just skip straight to the order and say, "Oh, we're attacking this building." Bang, done. And then when I did a map, it would be the same thing. The Gore Corps section would be colored in red, Team America would be in orange, AU-10 would be blue, etc., etc. I think the GMT Breakfast Club was yellow.
Man, that's so cool. That's what we call draining the soup. Because sometimes in the RCC, like, information can get too soupy, and it's like, how do we make, like, certain channels just be the ones that are, like, the standout meat and potatoes, and then there's the soup channels that people can just rant in or whatever.
Absolutely,
so
yes.
Cool. You did that with colors back in the day. Like, Discord offers so many options, but,
Yeah, I mean, I actually wish Discord had colors for text, because that would be quite useful, because I find that more useful than, I think that when I was talking to you about your forum organization, I think I was brutal about the number of stages of security that you have.
Yeah, it was over the top.
Yeah, and that's where the soup comes in. And I wish there were color organizations for Discord, just because I could then use that for my orders today. But Johnny Bass kind of burned out quite fast because he had a lot of stuff going on in real life. He was actually a semi-professional musician and had lots of shit going on. So he handed it over to Globule, and almost as soon as Globule was basically pretty much my number two. He was a guy who I trusted with everything, and Johnny was too, but Globule was this guy will tell me if I'm being an asshole kind of guy. So he would be, I used to like play Xbox with him and shit like that, staying up till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning because he's in the States.
So you guys really had a bond.
Yeah, we knew each other really well. We've got very similar taste in music and things like that, and films, so we would chat films and music a lot. And so I was very happy that he was chosen, but real life bit him hard because he's got a lot of personal commitments. He's got a family, which then resulted in him appointing Jadcore. And Jadcore is where it starts to go wrong. Jadcore's a good guy and a good figurehead, but he ran everything out of IRC. And they stopped using the forum, and the forum is the best place for casual players. The guys who don't want to sit on a fucking IRC channel 24/7 to stay in touch with the news. The guys who just want to come in and say, "Oh, we're attacking here. I'll go there."
There was no very successful metagaming tool.
Absolutely, because it's in place. Someone can come in 12 hours late, and the same information will be there as was for the person who was there the minute it was posted.
So you just disregarded that tool?
Disregarded it.
The meta for the RRF a little bit?
Yeah, it became completely IRC focused because he liked to sit on IRC all the time. And then he did the worst thing possible, which was he appointed Irishman as his second in command. Now, Irishman he predates me in the RF by quite a lot. He vanished during Nexus War and then came back very late on in my reign and started striking with Team America. And that was fine. I have played Left 4 Dead with the guy on PC, with him and the woman who is now his wife, and we had a lot of fun of that. I actually did leave him to die after he'd rescued me and then got killed. I let him die in a game of Left 4 Dead.
Cold.
Yeah. You know the one when you're refueling the car inside the mall?
Yeah, you have to get all those gas cans.
He rescued me, we were refueling the car, he got killed, I refueled the car and I fucked off, while his now wife was laughing her ass off at him, and he's screaming "betrayed" at the top of his voice into his microphone while we're watching the scene. But yeah, I like him a lot, but he was a bad choice for second in command, and he was an even worse choice for Papa, because that's who Jadcore chose as Papa when he retired. And Irishman is 100% an IRC person, so the forum just died. And Irishman is actually the longest standing Papa, and the RRF almost didn't survive him, because by the time he eventually left, there was no forum presence whatsoever, and then Baja.com died. it was so IRC focused, and there was so little discussion on the forums that I don't even know when he retired.
Yeah, there's no paper trails.
Absolutely. There's so little to know about him because so little was done. Basically, between my last tour and when I came back, there were no big events other than Johnny arranging a tour called Schools Out for Baja, which was I always had a theme for my tours, and he picked that one up and came up with his own one, which was really good. And after that, there wasn't another one, and Irishman never did anything like that. There was no narrative. Jadcore was the same, no narrative. Everything is just on IRC, and it's just a bunch of guys hanging around in an IRC channel. People who strike from work, they've got no chance. They can't join in. People who are just players, there's nothing for them. So the RRF almost completely died because of them. So after all of that debacle, everything sort of goes dark because Baja.com died. What I found out later was that Bosch, whose character name is Two-Headed Sex Beast.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. But Bosch, he became Papa. Now, this is how bad communication was through the RRF. I come back as a former RRF Papa who stayed kind of in touch with everything. I didn't know he was ever Papa until he told me like about 5 months ago. He was the one who started the Discord and got all of that restarted after Baja.com died. And then he retired and handed it over to Funk McBogey, who is the strike team leader of the Constables. And then that is pretty much where it lay when I came back. So you've got the dead zone of Jadcore and Irishman. The Irishman zone is like a super dead zone. And then you've got Bosch, who would have been a fantastic Papa. He would have been, if he'd have been brought in straight after Globule, I think that the RRF would have thrived again, but he wasn't. And Irishman was Papa for a long time, something like 2-3 years. And that's enough time that by the time Bosch was put in charge, he didn't have the energy that he used to have, that he would have brought before. And so he wound up retiring and passing it to Funk, who by that stage, the RRF was really just the Constables and a few like random players. So he ran it like a strike team. And that's what was there when I came back.
Cool. Yeah, and now you guys are, I'm looking at the game stats right now. You are number 2. May 4th, 2019.
Yeah, at one stage we were actually top because we broke 70 members again around about October last year. But what happened, we were top, but we were knocked off of the top because, funnily enough, anytime we reached the top, suddenly a few dead accounts would suddenly appear to get them back on the top. Nothing suspicious about that at all, nothing even slightly pathetic, but they do that.
We have 53, Roftwood Elite has 11, Molten Medical Staff has 10.
Yeah, and the difference between all of those groups and the dead is each of our players only runs one character, so we'll just put that out there.
You're super transparent. I like it.
Absolutely, and so are you, which I respect. So yeah, that's the history. That's the genealogy of the Papas, so to speak.
Cool. Yep, you're back, 2019, kicking ass with the Ridleybank Resistance Front.
Yeah.
Sonny is the only Papa that I ever really remember because he honored the courtly truce in Roftwood, which was kind of my first like emotional outburst when I came back to the game on the wiki. But yeah, the courtly truce, man, with Sonny. I don't know, where do you stand on that? It's just another building. We can't like enforce it. Doesn't matter that much.
Courtly's a tough one. Courtly was a massive pain in my ass as Papa. So when I told you about Murray cheating in the Molten Special Olympics when he sent us on a peacekeeping mission, that was actually to defend Courtly Study Group.
Oh, wow.
Which is, yeah, that was a survivor group within Greater Ridleybank. He sent us to defend them. Now, part of why he sent us to defend them is because Gulina had a character with them. Gulina was Gore Girl with them, who was one of their librarians. And I considered that very sketchy from an alt perspective. I didn't at the time because I was new to the meta, so I didn't really think about it that much. She didn't have Gore Girl there. She took Gulina in to do it and took Gore Girl somewhere else. But from my perspective, as I got into it, it's like, that's a bit sketch in my opinion.
Just the proximity.
And also, not even proximity, it's the alt abuse idea. Like, you're in one group, and you've brought your much more powerful group to defend this place for your other character. to the benefit of your other character, your weaker character. I didn't like that very much, and a lot of people in the Gore Corps. I didn't realize it at the time, because as I say, I was new to the meta, so I didn't really think that much about things like alt abuse. But the more I thought about it, I thought it was a bit sketchy. Now, it wasn't her who ordered it technically. Murray ordered it, but they were close. She will have been involved in the discussion on this. So what it turned out was that a lot of the Gore Corps were very quietly not happy about this. So when I became Papa, we found that members of Quarterly Study Group were reviving people inside Roftwood while we were taking it out, while we were attacking Roftwood. And I thought about it, it's like, that means you're not acting as the Quarterly Study Group role players in there talking about books and shit like that, having your little study sessions. You are reviving people who we're killing, which means you are positioning yourselves as adversaries. So we kill.
I see your logic, sir. That makes a lot of sense. They are participating in one side of a current war or whatever.
Yeah, they've chosen a side. Now, to be fair, every once in a while they would revive one of us, and they would be fine to chat to, etc. And in general, there are still people in Quarterly Study Group who I like, but they were crossing a line, so I destroyed the place. And that caused the first fallout with Gulina, and also with another character within the Gore Corps named Willie Clinton, who was actually the alt of the founder of Quarterly Study Group, Sir Fred of Etruria. They're actually married in real life now, by the way.
God, it's so funny.
Yeah, but something else that came up there actually was when we were doing the Gulina Zerg investigation, we found an old screenshot from the Battle of Blackmoor, which showed before one of them joined the Gore Corps, Willie Clinton and Sir Fred of Etruria both inside the Blackmoor building. So he'd been zerging against us during Blackmoor.
Awkward.
So, yeah, there was a lot of dirt there, and there was a big fallout with Sir Fred over it. Because he was one of the main ones reviving people, and I'm just like, I got pissed off about it. He left the Gore Corps, I didn't care, I just said, if you see Sir Fred of Etruria, you waste him. And we pretty much put Quarterly Study Group in the ground, and we just trashed the place. There was no mercy from then on, because they crossed the line. And there were still characters who I liked in there, like Smelly Soccer Mom.
I like Pivot. I like Charles Darwin.
Pivot, I like. Yeah, I've always liked
Squid.
Yeah,
they're cool people, but yeah, the truce. It's just not the way it used to be. I guess it's changed.
No, there was no way to make it function. You can't have something like that functioning in the shadow of Greater Ridleybank.
Which for the listeners, I also call Roftwood, but for my guest here, I will respect Roftwood being called Greater Ridleybank.
It's our land. We just let you live there.
Oh, you dine. It's your dining hall, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's the kitchen. Every house has a kitchen.
Nice.
Hildebrand Mall is like our frying pan.
Yeah, there you go. Damn. Or just all the flavors you get to taste and experience. So what are your thoughts on the modern zombie era? Like, you come back in early 2018, and the Ridleybank Resistance Front are obviously second on the group stats page to the dead, and then the Scourge are up there, and I'm not sure if there's any other real big zombie groups. Dual Nature, Feral Undead. But what are your thoughts on the modern zombie era right now in May 4th, 2019?
The modern zombie era, May 4th, 2019, is kind of fucked, actually. You've got the dead there. As I've said, I don't hate the dead. I think there are probably some really cool players involved in the dead, but there's too much sketchy shit around them for me to ever really hold them in particularly high regard. So I just kind of ignore them. Dual nature doesn't count, because 99% of the people who claim that they're dual nature are actually people who they'll maul someone outside if they see them on the way to the revive point. That's all they do. They're not really dual nature. They're just survivors who get bored while they're waiting for a revive. That's 99% of them. Feral Undeads, classic group. I was allied with them for a long time when I was Papa. Well, the whole time while I was Papa, they were always good people, but they haven't really been a factor for a long time now. They're literally just people wearing the badge. I think most of them are down round about the fort in the south.
Yeah, Wittenside area.
Wittenside, yeah. I think they're mostly down there. Yeah, and Wittens Die, I think they refer to it as. The Scourge, when I first came back and I saw the Scourge, I really liked their wiki page, and I was like, fuck, man, I wish I could just steal that wholesale. It's great. and their recruitment ad, I loved it. I loved the black and white monochrome theme they've got going there. It looks fantastic.
It's so simple and clean.
Exactly, yeah. And I was actually trying to, because I can't code on wiki for shit, but I can hack with other people's codes. So I was trying to find a way to like rework that code so it could be something new, and it just wouldn't work. So oh, fuck it, I'll just redo the new one. So I redid ours in like black and sort of flat blue. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it a lot too.
Thank you. Yeah, that worked out. But I looked at the Scourge, and I actually saw them as rivals at first because I was very concerned about how the RRF was only really the constables at that stage. So when I was reforming the Gore Corps, I was very much out to, I want the Gore Corps by itself to be bigger than the Scourge. The funny part being that we're now allied with the Scourge. I'm very close friends with the leader of the Scourge. But when I didn't know them at first, I was literally just like, so this is some zombie group that some survivors put together, and it's now somehow become the main touring zombie group. I'm not having that. We have to be better than them.
Nice.
So I got touchy about that, but then once I got to know Stella through Bosch, I was like, nah, she's cool. I like this group, and I like the way they work. So I'm less of a dick about it now.
Dude, she's very much like you with the hardcore military, like, kind of...
Yeah, she is.
Crushing, salting kind of thing.
And Stella actually has an alt with the RF now, and she's one of my special operatives.
Oh, man, that's scary.
She does stuff for me.
Scary stuff.
She's awesome, and I've worked with her very closely recently, as you're well aware. There's also Sig Nock, who I didn't really know that much about before, so in fact that their fucking wiki page it's ugly as hell, but I love it, because it just looks like pure anarchy. But I've been working with them as well recently, and I think they're fantastic. They're a good fun. They remind me a lot of Easternwood Ferals in that they're very secretive and you don't really see much of them, but then they just show up and just like, fuck you. And I like that about a team. Yeah, like I say, they remind me a lot of Easternwood Ferals, where they're hard to contact, but when you put the signal up, they show up and shit gets wrecked. And that really leaves Roftwood Elite, and they're terrible. Can't stand them.
Oh man, that's a weird crew. I don't even think they're on the stats anymore.
No, they're not.
It's been fun though. It was a learning experience, and honestly, I love I only play 2 characters these days: Zombie GG, the center of the city in like Roftwood, and then I do Human GG, my zombie guy, and I have a lot of fun haunting that fort. I don't know, for some reason haunting for me is just really, really fun. I love just it's kind of like scaring survivors off your lawn or something. It's like, this is my area. And I just do circles with a few other people. We just smash buildings, keep them dark. We just hang out in shadows. There's other people, all kinds of weird other zombies that do the same things. We gesture to each other.
Well, I've actually fought you down in the south.
Have
time
you?
When I had a spy, yeah. I told you earlier, I've combat revived you several times.
Oh man, that's crazy.
You personally.
I don't know. There's a lot of action going on. I usually go in that Malcolm NT because it's right next door to the fort or whatever. And sometimes I get revived, and then I finally get to spend my experience buying the rest of the survivor skills. Maybe try to change my clothes before I jump out a window again. Speaking of which, this is an off-topic thing. I want to know what the hell you don't wear anything. You don't wear clothes. Okay.
That's right.
Fine. Do you have a thing on that, or we just will cut it out?
There is a thing. I've always had the idea that Moloch should be whatever you want him to be.
Ooh.
Like, however you perceive the character, whatever you've seen on forums or whatever you've seen on Discord, that is what you'll see. So by not having clothes, and not having a description, I don't have a predefined identity aside from the name that you can take, because my profile is literally just a quote from Paradise Lost. So whatever you want to see of Moloch is what you do see, and most people obviously see the negative, and that's fine. Basically, I let you imagine the villain that you want it to be.
Hello again, Roftwood. This concludes part 7 of my most epic discussion with a player who's taken the game, the community, and its people to heart and memory. My personal, all-time arch-nemesis and RCC public enemy number 1, Lord Moloch, strike leader for the infamous Ridleybank Resistance Front's Gore Corps necro-terrorist unit. Tune in to part 8, coming soon. This RCC Fireside Chat is a post-apocalyptic production proudly presented to you by the Roftwood Coordination Center. I'm Zombie GG, and as always, Roftwood, the pleasure's been mine.